Hey everybody, this is Matt from Rapid Creek Cidery doing one of the first of our American classics. Today we're going to talk about clam chowder. The weather's getting chilly, the leaves are falling. It's a really great dish for a cold night or a cold Sunday afternoon. Really easy to share and easy to make with friends. And then a little later we're going to show you how to make some crackers. Cynthia, our great banquet chef, is going to make some homemade saltines, which will really kind of make it a little more than just a afternoon clam chowder. It's going to be really special. You would normally use bacon or salt pork would be the old classic thing to do, but I like the smokiness of the bacon. And I put a little olive oil down in there. You don't have to, you can use a little bacon fat if you had it. And then we'll get that a little rendered. You're really not trying to get it crisp because it's not going to stay crisp in the soup anyway. You're just trying to get some of that fat out so that when you do put other ingredients in, it takes on all that flavor. And when that's partially rendered, you're going to do yellow onion. There's a French version of this stew that uses shallot. That's nice too. I think the subtleness and sweetness of the shallot's a little lost on this dish. You really don't need it. A lot of onion because you're going to really wilt it down, and that's where you're going to get your base from of the flavor. So that's going to go for a while, kind of medium heat. Give it a little stir. You're not really trying to color it. You're just more trying to sweat it, we call it in the restaurant world. Get the water out of it, get it to be a little bit translucent. Clam chowder is a New England dish, as you could well imagine. But even within the New England area of the country, there's several kinds. This kind is going to have dairy in it. It's often referred to as a Boston-style clam chowder or a New England-style clam chowder. There are a couple other styles. You might have heard of a Manhattan-style clam chowder. So that doesn't have dairy. That's going to have tomato in it. It's very different, but it still has that deep clam flavor from the onions cooking for a long time. There's a Rhode Island style, which is just broth. So it's more like a clam broth, kind of clear, very, very light, but you still get that strong seafood saline flavor from the clams. The only other one really is a Long Island style, which you really don't see very much, which is actually kind of a cross between the Manhattan and the Boston. So it's kind of got that tomatoey cream sauce. You really don't see that much, but it is a thing that I guess Long Islanders like to make. When I do it, I'm going to use clams that I buy whole at the grocery store. When you're buying clams, and of course you could buy the meat just like shucked meat, but you're going to get so much more flavor, and you're going to get the juice from when you open the clams. There's a number of sizes of clams and different names. The biggest ones are called quahogs. Maybe not the biggest, but one of the bigger ones is called a quahog. That's this size here. And then there's little neck and top neck and cherry stone. I couldn't tell you what the sizes are, but those are the words I hear when I'm offered different sizes. I bought 100 clams, 100 of these big quahog clams, and I got 6 cups of meat off it. So just as a note, if you do go buy clams, that's kind of what your yield's going to be. You're going to open those with some white wine in a pot. It takes about 15 minutes. And the best part about that is the juice in the bottom is your liquid for the soup, and it's just great. It's really salty and clammy and tastes like the ocean. The other thing is there's a few different books I really like from my favorite people up in the Northeast. Jasper White is kind of the godfather of New England cuisine. His recipe for clam chowder, I think, is probably where I first learned to make it, probably in the early 90s, late 80s. But then there's Matt Jennings, who is a Rhode Island chef who does really interesting takes on some classic New England food. His has a kind of a little bit of an Italian bent to it, and he puts squid in there with it as well. It's really, really delicious. I've actually made that. And then the fun thing to read, if you ever see it around the used bookstore or you want to get it at the store yourself, is the Fanny Farmer Cookbook. It's from 1896. There's a lot of remakes of it, but there's a number of New England style recipes in there. The recipe for this in there is hilariously involved in terms of there's like 20 steps, and I can't imagine doing it, but it might be fun to try sometime. Okay, so anyway, we've got our onions just starting to sweat here, and they're looking kind of pretty. And then next we're going to throw in garlic and thyme and bay leaf. I really would encourage you to use fresh thyme for this, just a much better flavor. Give that a little stir. When you start smelling the garlic, just a minute or two. So when your onions are really kind of softened and the bacon and the garlic's getting to know each other, you're going to deglaze with a little white wine, just about a half cup. That's just gonna bring a little bit of subtleness to the flavor and get a little bit of that fond off the bottom. So, you know, where the bacon is stuck to the bottom, you're gonna get a little bit of scraps off the bottom, and that's gonna flavor it really well with the wine. And then I take some of the clam juice that I got from the clams themselves. I think from opening all those 100 clams, I yielded about 6 cups of juice as well. It's just really delicious. That's gonna go right in. And then I do my heavy cream. There are definitely ways to do this without the cream. You could use milk, but you're gonna wanna use less of the clam juice because you're not gonna get the body that you might get. And then the potatoes. These are fingerling potatoes. Put them in raw, and you can use Yukon Gold, you can use russets, whatever you want. I try not to dice anything larger than a spoon would hold. It can be awkward sometimes if items are too big and your guests are eating it, kind of falls off their spoon. And then I'm gonna bring the heat up on this, and it's gonna go for about probably 15 minutes to let all that get soft. Potatoes will get really soft at that point, and the flavors will really start to build. At the end, we'll add in the clams. You don't wanna add those too early, just because it starts to make them a little rubbery if they overcook. So in the meantime, we're gonna bring in our Banquet chef, Cynthia, and she's gonna make some amazing homemade saltine. Take it away.
Yeah, so soup season is here. It's my favorite time of year. So nothing goes better with soup or chili than crackers. So we're gonna start with 2 cups of all-purpose flour. And this recipe is gonna get you about 50 crackers, and that's like your average saltine square size. So I like to sift it first.
What's the sifting do?
It helps aerate the flour and give you a nice crispy cracker. Our yeast. So this is about half a teaspoon of yeast to the 2 cups of flour.
Just a regular yeast you get from Hy-Vee or the grocery
right,
store.
just an active dry yeast.
Yep.
So I like to add a little bit of our water to that. And that's a half a cup of water that goes into this, and then there's 1 teaspoon of salt. And the best way to get the salt into the cracker dough is to dissolve it in the remaining water. So I've got the sifted flour, I've got the yeast. I love this recipe because it's super easy. There's only 5 ingredients. I have 4 tablespoons of shortening.
And this is something you could make day of or day before and just make sure they're in an airtight container or something, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You could make it even more far ahead if you wanted to, maybe even freeze the dough.
When you say shortening, what are you using particularly, like a Cisco vegetable shortening? Or
yeah, I'm just using like good old grandma's Crisco.
You like that better than butter or oil or something? Or just...
I do, because I feel like it gives it a like crispier texture, where the butter makes it like soft. So just like if you were making cookies, if you want a hard crispy cookie, you use Crisco.
Got it.
So the salt is pretty much dissolved in the rest of the warm water here. I'm gonna go ahead and make like a crumbly mixture with the little bit of water that activated the yeast and the shortening. And I like to just do this by hand because it's such a small amount. And it's really fun for kids too, if your kids want to jump in there and get messy.
Yeah, that's always good. As long as you don't have to be the one cleaning it up.
So we've got a nice like crummy mixture now. And I'm gonna go ahead and add the water and salt to that.
You should probably be heating your oven up at this point, probably, because you don't want to let it sit once you've rolled them out. You want to get them in.
Right. So this is going to go in a 400-degree oven, and usually saltines are like a perforated cracker, so we're going to make sure that we dock it really well when we get it all done here. And if it's a little dry, you're just going to add a little bit more water to it. If it's a little wet, you can always add a little bit more flour. So this needs just a touch more water to kind of bring it all together. So you're just trying to make like a nice ball of dough, essentially. So we have this ball of dough here.
Have you ever made this using like a pasta roller? I've seen that before too.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can do it like hand, like we're going to, or you can use an electric pasta maker, or even a hand crank one as well. So usually you'll let this sit for about an hour just to kind of rise. So I have one here.
Beautiful. Such a different feeling once it's sat for a while.
Oh yeah, this is like just super tender and like kind of formed into a nice ball here. All right, so we're gonna start rolling it out. So this is part of your American classic.
Yes, it is.
It's like from the 1800s.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You got a little history on it.
I do.
Nice.
It's made for sailors.
Perfect.
So they could have
clam
something
chowder.
that would last a really long time on long voyages.
That makes like a hardtack.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would hope these will be a little more tastier than hardtack. That can be a little bit rough.
I think that was the original inspiration.
Was it? Yeah.
So you want to get these really, really thin, which is definitely easier with a pasta roller. But by hand rolling them, it gives them a nice, like, rustic appearance.
Yeah, you get some thick, some thin. It's kind of nice
Yeah.
texturally.
And at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter because you're just going to literally crumble them into
right,
your soup.
Right. And you don't even have to make squares. You can make.
No.
You could use like a smiley face cookie cutter. You know,
Yeah.
whatever you want, really.
Yeah, little dinosaurs, little T-Rex.
I like the squares for something like this because it kind of tells people what you're trying to make. You're trying to get saltine, so it kind of harkens back to that idea a little bit.
Right, but you know, if you wanted to be fancy for the holidays and make your own charcuterie board, make your own crackers.
Christmas trees?
You could do Christmas trees. I was just gonna say you could do like nice long ribbons or something.
Oh yeah, that'd be nice too.
So one thing I like to do is dock the whole dough, because once you cut them into squares and you try to dock them, your fork is gonna pick up every little square and it's gonna be really annoying.
Now, why do you dock it? Just for the look, or does it help keep it flat?
It keeps them, yeah, it keeps them flat, keeps them from rising too much, or else they'll be like kind of like domed pillows. So yeah, we're just gonna kind of dock all over the place. We are docked. So now the fun part is cutting them into shapes. Now I have a fun little pasta roller here that I choose to use. You can use just a knife. You could even use like your bench cutter. So if you want to be more precise, I have a ruler here and I can use that as just like a straight edge guideline.
Working with Cynthia, I've learned that if there's a way to be more precise, she's probably gonna go that way. So
Or just fancier.
Don't feel obligated to make it exactly the same width, but
look how pretty these
it's
little,
very pretty. It's very pretty. There's no doubt.
ridges are.
Oh yeah, it is lovely, no doubt.
And honestly, I don't really like to re-roll this dough because it's just gonna get drier and drier. And you know, like I said, you're just gonna crumble it up anyways. So you might as well just use every little bit of this and have some random odd pieces. You know, you can always hide them at the bottom of the bowl and pretend that everybody like.
Or use them yourself since you're the hostess.
Well, that's true too. Okay, so we're almost there. And when you go to pick these up off the wooden cutting board, they're gonna lose any squareness that they have anyways, so it really doesn't matter how precise they are.
And you're gonna put salt on these, but you could do herbs, you could do
Oh yeah, totally.
spices, you know,
Yeah,
whatever you
black
want to.
pepper.
Yeah, that'd be a good one. Black pepper would be nice.
So yeah, we have all of our crackers cut. We're gonna transfer all of these to our baking sheet. You don't have to use a Silpat. You can certainly use parchment paper.
And really, you know, the amount you made here is like what we call a half sheet pan, you know, like a home cookie sheet.
Right.
And that would be plenty for like 4 people or 6 people, which would be the amount of soup we're making.
Totally. I like making these just because it is such a big difference from the ones you buy.
And your guests will be like, that's amazing when it's not that hard.
Right.
That's always the
Or
best.
that's what you hope they say.
Oh, I'm sure they will.
All right, so we have all these crackers, and they can be touching because they're gonna shrink up a little bit anyways. Once they're all done, we're gonna brush them with an oil and water mixture. This helps give them like that rustic, kind of dry, bubbly appearance on top. And you can kind of go crazy with it, but you do want to cover the whole cracker or else you're gonna see like this awkward baking line on them when you pull them out.
Could you do that when it's still a whole piece still, or would that be harder to cut?
I feel like it'd be harder to cut.
Yeah.
So yeah, just real quick over the top. And then we're gonna sprinkle them with Maldon salt. This is our kind of finishing salt of choice here. Just because it's a nice large flake salt.
You get the texture of the salt.
Yeah. And that water really helps it like cling to the cracker when you go to bake it. There we go.
Ta-da!
Ah.
They'll be so impressed.
Yeah. So 400-degree oven, 8 to 10 minutes.
Do you have to put them in the fridge or anything, or you just get them?
I would put them in an airtight container once they're completely cooled.
Maybe like one of these brand new
Yeah.
saltine containers. Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Yeah, some kind of tin container.
Awesome.
And they'll last a couple weeks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Awesome. Put a bowl of those out with your soup, and you're gonna be the belle of the ball for that. So once you get the potatoes in, and they're cooking for about 20 minutes, they're soft, you're really just about there. This would be the point where you'd add your clams. So this is about 3 cups of clams I'm adding, which is a lot, but you don't want it to be kind of a hollow soup. That's what I kind of call it, a hollow soup, if it's too much of the liquid, not enough solids. And so you add all those clams and it really just fills it up. It kind of makes it like a perfect thickness and texture. And while you do have the potatoes in there, while they're cooking, they're going to release a little bit of starch as well. So that's going to give a little bit more of the body you want from the soup. And then just a little squeeze of lemon when those are hot, and a little bit of salt, and you're really good to go. I might put a little black pepper in there. You could add some herbs from your garden if you still had some. I think sage would be nice in here if you wanted to.
Yeah, definitely. It smells great.
You could do something where you did the same, like an herb on these and then the same herb on these.
Yep, kind of complement each other.
Or even like a red chili flake on there could be nice too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it. I think that's your next afternoon cooking task. Anyway, so that's the deal. You're gonna make clam chowder, bacon, potatoes, white wine, cream, pretty straightforward. I do recommend buying fresh clams and opening them, but you can buy the meat in the freezer section as well. And then we've got the beautiful saltine Cynthia made. She's gonna get some on there, and we're probably gonna eat this as soon as that camera stops. So thanks for watching us make some clam chowder, and this is Matt and Cynthia from Rapid Creek Cidery, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.